Hello, I'm Syan Vallence. It's 4 o'clock and these are our top stories in Perth this afternoon. Toppled trees and fallen power lines strewn across multiple suburbs. The clean-up begins after a superstorm lashed parts of Perth. The Weather Bureau weighs in why the storm was so fast and ferocious. Olympic cyclist Melissa Hoskins laid to rest, an emotional send-off for the mother of two. Thousands of shoppers ripped off by scammers targeting some of our biggest companies. And Hollywood comes to Perth. Construction begins on WA's multi-million-dollar film studio. Good afternoon. More than 20,000 homes remain without power after a fast and furious summer storm pounded the Perth hills. A massive clean-up and restoration effort is right now underway. Crews are busy clearing fallen trees and power lines. Western Power crews worked through the night to respond to hundreds of hazards after the superstorm hit yesterday. The power provider is asking the community to be patient as repair work is still being done to restore customers impacted by a number of bushfires and storm activity from the past week.
It's been a very challenging week, for the crews, etc. As part of the high fire weather conditions. Then we've also had the heat wave, and now the storm that went through a very large area yesterday, right from the wheat belt through to the hills where we are today, with significant damage to our network and infrastructure during that period. We currently have around 22,000 customers off, and that's down from 34,000 yesterday at the peak of the storm activity, and we are continuing those restoration efforts through the next days.
Residents were only given an hour's notice before the system unleashed, with more than 50,000 lightning strikes in the wider metro area. Coming up at 4:30, hear from homeowners in the hills and their message for residents to be storm ready. Our reporter Lockie Byrne will have the latest on the clean-up effort. Summer storms aren't unheard of in Perth, but the pace and ferocity of this system shocked residents in its path. I'm joined now by senior meteorologist Dean Narranmore from the Weather Bureau. Dean, thanks for joining us. How unusual is this sort of summer storm near Perth?
Yeah, look, summer storms aren't that unusual around much of WA. We get them all the time, but this one was quite close to Perth. Normally we see them in the wheat belt and maybe just on the hills and quickly move eastwards, but this one was a little bit closer, and it formed on the west coast trough that was just sitting inland, and then it started to move south along the ranges, and that's where we saw some pretty big impacts as well. We saw winds gusting to 113 kilometres an hour around the Cunderdin area, and we also saw very heavy falls as well. Lake Chittering saw falls of around 28 millimetres in just half an hour, and Brookdale Siding saw 38 millimetres in half an hour. But it moved very fast as it trained through the northeast suburbs and very far eastern suburbs in the hills, and within about 20 or 30 minutes it was gone.
Why was it so intense? It seems so fast and furious.
Yeah, so we normally have those more intense storms inland, but there's been a fair bit of humidity and moisture around as well, and that's our energy for storms. And as we know, Perth normally used to those hot, dry summers, but it's been quite humid the last few days, and that's because there's a fair bit of moisture in the atmosphere. So that provided this storm with the energy to become more intense and higher impact than what we'd normally see through the Perth and adjacent areas.
And we heard the night before there was the possible chance of a storm. Obviously, then this hit. There was about an hour's warning. Are these kind of weather systems quite unpredictable?
Yeah, storms are always tough. We normally know that all the ingredients are coming together on a storm day, but exactly where they form and when, that's a little bit trickier, and that's normally once we've got to see all the ingredients come together in that late morning period, and then we see those storms rapidly blow up on this radar imagery, as we've all seen, and then we can track them and warn from there.
So with that in mind, how likely is it that Perth will cop any more storms like this summer?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. It's only the middle of January. Normally our spring and summer season is our typical time for storms, so we're likely to see next west coast trough or any weather systems moving in the coming weeks, particularly if it combines with the more humid air mass that we have in place right now. Well, I'm sure we'll see more thunderstorm days in the weeks ahead.
All right, well, we'll watch and see. Dean, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, cheers, thank you.
More than 80 calls were made to the SES for assistance during the surprise superstorm. In many cases, crews are working to put temporary repair measures in place. Nick Overall has more.
Good afternoon. We're in Mundaring where the storm ripped through yesterday afternoon. I'm here at the SES headquarters with District Officer Chris Kinmount. Chris, can you tell us how many homes in the area have been impacted?
Nick, we've had about 56 homes and requests for assistance in the Mundaring area and the Perth Hills area. Throughout the entire severe thunderstorm warning area was probably about 80 requests received by State Emergency Service.
And Chris, how is the clean-up effort going today?
SES volunteers are working very hard. It's hot, difficult conditions. What they're seeing is a lot of trees down on properties, resulting in a lot of clearance work needing to be done to remove those trees and then put temporary repair measures in place.
And obviously there's still a lot of homes without power and, like you said, a lot of trees down. Is there some advice out there for those people who still need some help?
Yeah, if you do seek assistance and your property has been damaged, call the SES on 132500. Alternatively, if you are suffering at home without air conditioning, without water supplies that have been perhaps interrupted, seek alternatives. Visit family and friends, reach out to other providers there that may be able to assist you. Please contact insurance companies. Make sure you're on top of the insurance companies for them to assist you also.
Chris, thank you very much. In the news at 6, we'll bring you the latest on the efforts to restore power.
Olympic cyclist Melissa Hoskins has been laid to rest in an emotional ceremony in Fremantle this afternoon. The 32-year-old died on December 30 after being hit by a car outside her home in Adelaide. Her husband, Rowan Dennis, has been charged with causing her death by dangerous driving. He sat with the couple's 2 children today. Coming up a little later this hour, Hoskins' illustrious career, which extended far beyond the track. Foreign Minister Penny Wong is in Israel, where the war is having an increased impact on global trade. Today, she heard horror stories of Hamas kidnappings from the families of hostages. Ashley Mullaney has more.
The first stop for Penny Wong was Jordan today, where the Foreign Minister expressed her grave concern about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Senator Wong said the Australian government was committing $21.5 million in humanitarian aid for humanitarian organisations and refugees displaced by the war in Gaza. Senator Wong also spent time this afternoon with families of hostages who are still being held captive in Gaza. Their families told me they were touched and grateful for the opportunity to speak with our Foreign Minister, because they said it meant that the world hadn't forgotten about them.
The most powerful thing is the opportunity and the privilege of speaking with the families of hostages, and it was incredibly moving.
There was controversy about Penny Wong's trip before she even arrived. No plans in her schedule for her to visit the border towns where Hamas carried out those atrocities on October 7, though she said she was meeting not only with hostage families but survivors of the attack too. All of this coming as a crisis escalates in the Red Sea. Confirmation today that Houthi rebels have struck another ship, this time a Greek cargo ship, 24 crew on board. Thankfully, no one was injured, but it's understood that ship was heading for a port in Israel. The US says it has also carried out another strike in Yemen today. They've called this a dynamic operation, suggesting it was perhaps done at the last minute. They said they've taken out 4 anti-ship ballistic missiles.
Thousands of customers have been targeted in an online hacking scheme, with some losing hundreds of dollars. Criminals used the already released passwords of 15,000 Australians to hack accounts for Dan Murphy's, Guzman and Gomez and Binge.
A lot of household brands that are targeted purely because they're so popular and they're used by so many people.
The Prime Minister says he's investigating further measures to protect Australians. Construction has begun on WA's multi-million-dollar film studio in Malaga. It was originally earmarked for Victoria Quay in Fremantle, but the lack of space meant Malaga was a better option. It will include 4 sound stages surrounded by construction workshops, production offices, edit suites and everything to support filmmakers. It will cost $233 million. Later in the bulletin, we'll reveal when the studio will be ready to roll. Australia's highest-ranked player had a convincing win at the Australian Open, destroying his opponent in straight sets on a wet day in Melbourne. Here's Kate Massey.
Syan, Australian favourite Alex de Minaur made it look easy here on day 4 of the Australian Open, through to the 3rd round in straight sets. While it didn't take long to win, other games here took a while to kick off, rain delaying them on the outside courts until after 2 o'clock. And it wasn't just the rain dampening the mood here. Alexander Zverev forced to shut down claims he should step aside from his leadership role in the Players' Council over assault claims.
Some who are actually interested more in a story to write about and more about the clicks than the actual truth.
Controversial tennis great Margaret Court will make an appearance at this year's tournament, her first in 4 years. Fellow tennis legend Yvonne Goolagong is excited to see her old friend, but today focused on celebrating First Nations Day.
So I'm looking forward to seeing them anyway. She's still an old friend.
There was more success for the Aussies overnight. Tanasi Kokonakis moving through to the 2nd round after a 5-set thriller last night.
Sometimes I struggle for motivation during the year, but January in the Aussie Open definitely isn't one of those times.
Syan, a big day of tennis on day 4 of the Australian Open. We'll have more details and all the highlights in the news at 6.
Thanks, Kate. You're watching 7's Afternoon News live from Perth. Coming up, the terrifying moment a plane hits a power line and explodes. And a new gate installed following a drowning tragedy on the Swan.
How artificial intelligence is reinventing the hearing aid, promising to improve hearing, brain function and even send medical alerts. 7 News at 6.
You're watching 7's 4pm news live from Perth. Right now it's 27 degrees in the city. The forecast is coming up soon. A child-safe lock has been installed on a riverside playground close to where 2 children drowned on New Year's Eve. It's understood multiple families raised concerns over the lack of a lockable gate years before the 4- and 6-year-olds died. Their deaths highlighted the importance of water safety along the Swan River, with Burswood Park installing a pool-style lock on Friday. It's not known if they'd been in the playground before they died. A New York architect accused of killing sex workers and dumping their bodies on a Long Island beach has been charged with a 4th count of murder. 60-year-old Rex Hoyerman is accused of strangling the women and dumping their bodies more than 15 years ago. In total, the remains of 10 sex workers have been found. Shocking video has emerged of the moment a firefighting plane hit a power line in Chile and exploded. The pilot was an experienced aerial firefighter from Spain and died in the crash. The plane came down on a busy highway in central Chile. Several motorists were injured. A pet Labrador's love of water has landed him in trouble after taking a dip in a frozen pond in Utah. The dog, called Bob, couldn't climb back out following his polar plunge. Local firefighters came to the rescue, jumping in to pull him out. The state government has thrown a $10 million lifeline to southwest businesses. It comes as the region moves away from native timber logging. For more, here's Noel Brunning from 7 News Regional WA.
11 businesses will share in the cash splash, including Bendotti exporters who supply the state with premium French fries and process up to 20,000 tonnes of locally grown potatoes every year. It's part of the Native Forest Transition Plan as the region moves away from native timber logging. The funding will also open up new tourism opportunities like this aerial adventure ropes course at Gloucester National Park. And a new program is helping WA farmers increase their profits from the ground up. Farmers enrolled in the SoilWise program can collect samples of their soil and send them off for testing. The results will tell them what needs work and what will grow best.
Ahead this news hour, supercharged service, the new roadside assistance for Perth's electric cars. And supermarkets caught in the act, creating dodgy markups. What to look out for. You're watching Seven's Afternoon News. Ryan Daniels joins us now. Ryan, Australia's new opener has hit the pitch.
Well, he has, Si, but unfortunately not for too long. All the highlights from day one of the first test in Adelaide straight after the break. Plus, one of the great BBL games ends in a thriller, what it means for the Scorchers. And another one down. The Eagles lose a second star in as many days.
Know the headlines as they break. Know the stories as they happen. With 7news.com.au, know the news now.
Welcome back. Australia looked to be in command of the first test against the West Indies on day one, but the tourists mounted a late fight back. Josh Hazlewood and Pat Cummins starred, with the ball taking 4 wickets each. The Windies all out for 188.
For the first time since 1980, Australia won the toss in Adelaide and bowled.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of grass on the wicket and have first use of it.
3 first-timers for the Windies, caps from Brian Lara and Ian Bishop. Pat Cummins called the bowl, vindicated by Australia's comeback kid.
Fuller and gone! Cameron Green back in the side, back in the action, but it's the captain Cummins.
His first test since July, 24-year-old Green given high praise.
Arguably one of our greatest ever gully fielder.
Cummins a double breakthrough. 250 wickets. For Josh Hazlewood, Kirk McKenzie 50, Windies top scorer. Roughed up by Mitch Stark.
Ouch.
Rookie Shamar Joseph wore one, gave a thumbs up and returned fire.
There he was, backing away. He's got all of this.
36 for Joseph, West Indies all out 180. A false start for new opener Steve Smith. Kids in front of the side screen. On 12, the opener faced Joseph's first ball in Test cricket.
Edge taken with his first ball. Smith is on the way.
1 for 25, no ideal start at the top of the order. Runs plus Australia's biggest wicket. A debut that only got better. Marnus Labuschagne falling on 10 for the hook trap. Joseph chased across Adelaide Oval. Calypso back in the tourist cricket. Australia's new number 4, Green, unbeaten on 6. The Windies unearthing a new star. Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
If the Perth Scorchers are going to win their 6th Big Bash title this season, they'll need to do it the hard way. Second spot was on the line against the Sixers last night. Perth had set a huge 198 to win. But the Sydney side looked like they had it under control. Then Jason Berendorf's final over gave the Scorchers momentum, and some wild runouts put the game into balance before Sixers skipper Moses Enriquez kept his cool to win the match on the final ball of the game.
If there's any positives, we got a little bit of a break. We've had a really busy last couple of weeks, so a couple of days just to chill out and reflect on the past, not just today, but the last couple of weeks.
Perth now play the Strikers in a sudden death final and will then need to win 2 more games on the trot to claim the title. The injury blows keep coming for the Eagles. Best and fairest winner Tim Kelly has now hurt his hamstring. The star midfielder felt some tightness at training and scans have confirmed he strained it. West Coast expects he'll be back training early next month and will be available for their practice matches. New CEO Don Pike cast his eye over training today. The Eagles say they're currently going through match-like conditioning, which brings with it a risk of injury. Liam Ryan hurt his hamstring 2 days ago and will need surgery, putting the start of his season in doubt. St Kilda spearhead Max King will ramp up his bid for round 1. He was put to the test on a wild weather day as the Demons, Pies and Tigers also slogged it out.
Winter footy in January and nowhere to hide at Moorabbin as Max King took his first steps towards round 1. His left shoulder given a searching physical test ahead of a return to contact training in a fortnight's time, 6 weeks to prove himself for season start. Mateus Filippo still nursing a turf toe but set to rejoin the main group next week alongside Brad Crouch after his knee surgery. Still no Josh Dacos, but Brodie Mychek back from a calf concern as the race to find his partner in attack heats up.
We've got lots of options, so whether we go tall or smaller, we're trialling different things.
Now the AFL's oldest list, it's the Senior Pies driving the push to go back-to-back for the first time in 88 years.
We've got a lot of older guys on the list, so they know that they don't have a lot of time to, hopefully cash in some premierships, so they're trying their best to give ourselves a chance again.
Christian Petrarca's new look didn't help his tackling attempts on Jack Viney on a morning of rough and tumble at D's HQ. Lockie Hunter working back from a calf complaint. Jack Billings close to full training after a hamstring setback. And from one Brownlow medalist to another, Dustin Martin welcoming old teammate Ben Cousins to Tigers training. 14 years since he left Punt Road. Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Great to see, Syan. We'll have a full wrap of the tennis at 6 o'clock.
All right, we'll see you then. Thanks, Ryan. There are more questions for the major supermarket chains as new evidence of bogus discounting emerges. Jodie Lee reports.
Consumers are taking to social media to call out the supermarket's sneaky pricing. TikTok is awash with videos claiming supposed discounts are anything but.
Spoken to Coles, this doesn't make sense. One for $1.55 or two for $5.30.
It doesn't take off much money for your specials, and I just go in and shop now. I just don't even bother about specials or anything like that.
I can't afford it. I've got to go catch bottles to come in here.
Too high, too expensive, hard to survive in Sydney.
The ACCC is investigating what it calls was now pricing, where a business inflates prices briefly so subsequent sales appear bigger than they are. The consumer watchdog is considering suing big supermarket chains over the practice within the next year.
It can be difficult for an individual to exert their rights. That's why this action by the ACCC is really important for consumers.
Under fire over the cost of living crisis, the federal government had already announced a review of the Grocery Code of Conduct, but it could also beef up the ACCC's powers to investigate price gouging.
We do have a market concentration of power when it comes to our supermarket sector, and people know, therefore, that with that comes a responsibility to ensure that consumers are looked after. Our priority is making sure that shoppers can get goods at the checkout at the cheapest possible price.
The states are also set to apply pressure to the supermarkets. Queensland Premier Stephen Miles will meet with bosses tomorrow to understand why costs are coming down but prices continue to rise.
This is 7's afternoon news live from Perth. Still to come, a vaccine for a common virus approved for people over the age of 60. And Sonic the assistant's dog back home where he belongs after being stolen.
7 News knows Perth.
Headlines flash by all day.
But to know the news, watch 7 News at 6 o'clock.
And here's why.
It was members of the gang crime squad that arrested him.
Our reporters are newsbreakers.
Are you a victim of their negligence?
With more exclusive reports that dig deeper
and demand answers.
We commit to travel to wherever the stories happen, even the front line.
Chris Reason from Channel 7 Australia.
As international news unfolds in Europe.
We're live to you at 6 p.m.
Breaking down the global issues that matter back home in Perth.
7 News understands.
Our reporters travel from suburb to suburb.
Here in Joondalup
and across our state to bring you the news.
I can confirm.
This is the team we trust.
And thank you
for trusting 7 News.
Hello, you're watching 7's afternoon news live from Perth. Here are the top stories. Incredible escapes and close calls after a superstorm lashed parts of Perth. The clean-up for residents begins. Olympian Melissa Hoskins farewelled by friends and family in Fremantle. Donald Trump back in court accused of defaming a woman. And Hollywood comes to Perth. Work begins on a new film studio ready to lure A-listers west. We'll be back in the 20s tomorrow. Your full weather forecast is coming up soon. Thousands of Hills residents could be forced to wait days until they're reconnected to power. Lockie Byrne spoke with impacted families in the damage zone.
Good afternoon. Well, just behind me is not a wall or a rock, it's actually the underside of a tree. You can see the base is more than about 10 foot tall, but not big or strong enough to withstand yesterday's superstorm. It was ripped out of the ground and fell onto Jim and Marjorie Stanger's house. It was fast and fierce. They say within just 20 minutes the damage was done. Described as a mini tornado, homes in Stoneville bared the brunt, with trees caving holes in roofs across the suburb.
It was really intense. It was just like all of a sudden, it just hit and it was just sheeting across. You couldn't see a thing, and there's hailstones, and then the tree fell down.
In the bushfire-prone area, many of the residents are insured and have generators to keep the fridges on for now. But that might not last for some homes and businesses. Western Power says at its peak, there was 34,000 customers without power. That's been brought down to 22,000, but could be facing extended outages.
We have about 100 poles down, there's hundreds of kilometres of conductors and 7 transmission lines. So that gives you a scale of the size of the impact of both the storm activity and that really high fire weather.
The owners say they're thankful the tree came down at the angle it did and didn't cause more damage to the house, but other residents around here weren't as lucky yesterday. We'll hear more from them in the news at 6 tonight.
Olympic cyclist Melissa Hoskins has been laid to rest in an emotional funeral service in Fremantle. Her accused killer husband sat with the couple's 2 young children as Melissa's devastated father paid tribute to his daughter.
For Melissa Hoskins' family, this was a day of unimaginable grief. An emotional service while the man accused of killing her was also watching on. Rowan Dennis walked in a back entrance with the couple's 2 children, while Melissa's loved ones made tributes, struggling to fight back tears. There were moving eulogies with no mention of Dennis.
We're celebrating a life today that was cut way too short. Melissa was just warming up. Her best performances were yet to come. We are grieving, all of us. We are sad, all of us. There should have been more. There's not going to be more. But we are left with a lifetime of memories.
Melissa Hoskins was 32 when she was hit by a car outside her home in Adelaide just after Christmas. Her husband was allegedly behind the wheel. They were the golden couple of cycling, Melissa as an Olympic gold medal winning cyclist, Rowan a world champion rider. Their daughter is just 2 years old and their son 5. Now they're both growing up without their mother. At 6 we'll bring you more from this heartbreaking service and reaction after the funeral.
China's ambassador to Australia is calling for closer military ties between the 2 nations, including joint defence exercises to build real trust. But he denies a Chinese warship was responsible for a sonar attack on Australian divers last year, pointing the finger at Japan.
There was a third country boat nearby. Whether or not there was sonar from the other side, other party, we're not sure.
It's a ridiculous position from the Chinese government, and I'm sad for the Chinese ambassador that he's got to retail this nonsense.
The Prime Minister says Australia stands by its complaint against China. The federal government says new laws are on the way, cracking down on artificial intelligence and any potential risks. Isabel Mullen has the details.
Well, the federal government says new laws are on the way, cracking down on artificial intelligence and any potential risks. High-risk industries with a focus, as the Industry Minister Ed Husic outlined how the government plans to manage the exponential growth of AI and a reluctance from the public to wholeheartedly embrace the technology.
I think what people are concerned about is that the technology gets ahead of itself and has an impact on people's safety. The days of self-regulation are gone.
Government is working with business to develop an AI safety standard and labelling, but it will be voluntary. Critics say more needs to be done to protect Australian industry and business.
We really need to adopt perhaps a more aggressive approach here to make sure that we are protected, that AI doesn't ruin our lives, that it can only enhance our lives. I think we're at the dawn of a new age. We've had the computer age, we've had the internet age, we're now in the AI age.
The European Union has taken a tougher stance. Its pending AI Act has banned some high-risk uses. It was a 36-hour negotiation before officials reached a provisional deal last month. Australia, the United Kingdom and the US appearing to take a softer approach.
If it's a setting where there's personally identifying information, I definitely think we need guardrails.
The government insists it will implement a number of mandatory regulations, but no date has been set for when these laws will be implemented.
Donald Trump is back in court facing a defamation trial, fresh off the back of his win in Iowa. But rather than hurt his prospects of re-election, it only seems to be helping. Miley Hogan has more.
The campaign courtroom pivot is a move we are going to see again and again this race where Donald Trump is involved. Last night he had an historic win here in Iowa. This morning he was in a courtroom in New York, and then it's back to New Hampshire to rejoin the campaign. Last night's victory here in Iowa was historic for Donald Trump. More than half of Republican voters who showed up chose him to be their presidential nominee. His two closest rivals, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, are trailing around 30 points behind him.
The largest margin of victory in GOP history. Is that good? Is that good?
Today's case in New York is a defamation civil suit that has been brought by a woman named E. Jean Carroll. Last year, a jury found the former president liable for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll in a department store in the mid-90s. This new separate trial will decide how much, if any, he will have to pay her in damages for claiming she made up the story to sell a book.
Everybody make way.
Come on. Donald Trump has been using his court appearances as a campaign stop, and so far it has been working for him. The big takeaway from last night's historic victory is that Republicans, at least here in Iowa, are not deterred by Donald Trump's mounting legal battles.
I think in some ways the indictments will increase his popularity.
I think what he's been charged with is absolute bull.
While Donald Trump was in court today, his rivals were in New Hampshire campaigning, and that is where the next vote will take place. It will be interesting to see if Donald Trump can keep up momentum there. That state traditionally is less conservative, so it will be one to watch.
Australians are being urged to protect themselves against a so-called virus triple-demic. As health officials battle another COVID wave, we're being urged to watch out for the RSV and the flu. RSV is usually associated with children, but it can have a serious impact on adults too. A vaccine has just been approved for over 60s. Western Australia will be chasing a bigger slice of the world film and television industry, with work starting today on a multi-million-dollar studio. Jeff Parry has the details.
Good afternoon. There was an original plan to build sound stages on Victoria Quay in Fremantle, but a lack of space saw them move the proposal to here in Malaga. It's a vast open space off Beachborough Drive, not dissimilar to the film capital Hollywood when it started up 120 years ago. Loads of room for a new studio complex that includes a massive backlot.
The backlot and extra space, what's called a boneyard in the industry, is very attractive because really what producers, particularly of larger or multiple projects, need is space.
This is how they see the studio complex coming together: 4 sound stages surrounded by construction workshops, production offices, edit suites and everything else to support filmmakers.
We're going to do it, we're going to build it, and it is going to be an important part of the jigsaw that is the screen industry, and particularly the industry as it evolves and develops throughout the world.
And it means industry jobs.
You can see young people who have got experience in acting, production, set design, film and other support services getting a start in life out here as part of this great new facility.
The studio will be ready to roll in 2026 and the operators expect to be taking bookings for it during 2025. The total cost, $233 million. The money is already set aside. I'll have more in the news at 6.
Still to come on 7's afternoon news, how spider venom could be used to treat heart attacks and strokes. Plus, a popular supermarket item recalled. And the new charging van on Perth roads, ready to rescue electric vehicles. Welcome back. Staff at a Kalgoorlie news agency were forced to lock themselves inside after vandals targeted the store. CCTV captured the moment a man smashed a rock into the front window before kicking and punching the door. It happened at Kalgoorlie News and Gifts on Hannans Street. The owner told 7 News her car was also vandalised and that it's not the first time the store has been targeted.
It's been worse over the last 3 or 4 months, but I've had this shop for 20 years and I've had problems for 20 years. Hence the CrimSafe doors.
It took officers around half an hour to arrive. Investigations are ongoing. A man who repeatedly stabbed a backpacker at a Perth hostel has been found not guilty of attempted murder by reason of insanity. Liaquat Ali Zahidi admits he attacked the victim in September 2021, but argued he wasn't criminally responsible because he was of unsound mind. A Supreme Court justice today agreed the 30-year-old will remain in custody until his treatment needs are met. Australian researchers have made a major medical breakthrough. They've found spider venom could treat heart attacks and strokes. Venom from the Gurry funnel web spider limits damage suffered in the moments following an attack.
In all contexts and time points, this drug seems to block the injuries associated with a heart attack, all the way from the ambulance time points through to the hospital.
Early testing has revealed the drug could be an effective and safe treatment. Bottles of prune juice have been recalled after traces of alcohol were detected due to the fruit accidentally fermenting. Customers are being urged not to drink from the 1 litre Sunraysia prune juice bottle, which has a best before date of December 4, 2025. It was sold at Coles and Woolworths across the country. Police have arrested 2 accused dog thieves who allegedly stole the assistance dog from a teenage boy. Detectives returned Sonic the French bulldog to his owners last night after arresting the pair. They're accused of entering the Karrinyup home and taking him in broad daylight. Police charged the 46-year-old and 39-year-old women with aggravated home burglary. Perth has its first battery-operated rescue van to power electric vehicles caught between charging stations. But it's not good news for every driver. Lucy Murray has the details.
This battery-powered van carries enough charge to get 3 electric vehicles back on the road. It's a plug-and-play solution. The roadside charge takes 20 minutes and provides enough juice for the car to limp 15 kilometres to the nearest charging station. The all-electric van is one of the first in Australia and is needed as the popularity of electric vehicles continues to surge. Sales have doubled in the past 12 months. The Tesla Model Y was Australia's best-selling new car last year.
Over 50% of our members are now considering an EV or a hybrid as part of their next vehicle purchase, and that's an increase, and that shows there's strong interest. So we really do know that the community are ready to embrace them.
The van will be based in the metro area for a 12-month trial period. Electric vehicles stuck on country roads will have to be towed for now.
Susanna Carr is in the newsroom preparing for the bulletin at 6. Sue, clean-up crews have a huge job on their hands in the hills.
They certainly do, Si. Thousands of homes are still without power following yesterday's superstorm. It could be days before they're reconnected. For all the damage, there are extraordinary tales of survival. We'll bring you one of those incredible stories at 6. Olympic cyclist Melissa Hoskins has been laid to rest in Fremantle. Her accused killer husband attended with their children. A northern suburbs beach has been closed because of a rare bacteria. At 6, where it's impacting and how long it'll stay closed. And Australia's first smart ear, how artificial intelligence is reinventing the hearing aid. Those stories and more at 6, Si.
Thanks, Sue. We'll see you then. We're back in the 20s after a week of scorching temperatures. I'll have your full weather forecast after the break.
Now, Fuel Watch. Perth's petrol prices brought to you by Fuel Watch and 7 News.
Checking the weather now. Anyone in the hills who didn't have power would have had a hard time sleeping. It was the warmest night so far this year. Our low 23.4 degrees in the early hours of this morning. Looking at the national forecast, it'll be windy in Melbourne with a top of 21, sunny in Canberra and possible showers for Sydney and Brisbane. Back to Perth and our cool reprieve. We're expecting a partly cloudy top of 27 tomorrow, 28 on Friday, warming up for the weekend, sunny and 32 on Saturday, 30 on Sunday, then dropping back to 26 on Monday, 27 on Tuesday and 29 on Wednesday. And that's Perth's 4 p.m. news. I'm Syan Vallence. I'll be back with Sue and Ryan for 7 News at 6. The Chase Australia is next.